Imagine Europe as a giant powder keg, sealed tight, wires running in every direction. All it needed was a spark, and in July 1914, that spark finally came. What followed was a silent countdown, a dangerous poker game played behind closed doors. The world thought it was at peace, but in reality, the fuse was already burning, and no one could stop it. Stay with me, because the storm that became World War I didn't begin with guns, but with telegrams, whispers, and a single ultimatum that shook Europe to its core. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon, so you never miss our deep dives into the untold stories of history. The Austrian government had almost completed its plan to corner Serbia with a demand so harsh that rejection was inevitable. But secrecy was key. Diplomats in Vienna moved like ghosts, ministers arriving in unmarked cars, hiding even from their own allies. On July 17th, Baron Moritz Schilling, secretary to the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Sazonov, intercepted encrypted messages hinting at Vienna's timing. The next day, Austria's ambassador in St. Petersburg, Count Schopery, tried to test the waters with Sazonov himself. It was a chess game in words. Schopery probed cautiously to see if Russia suspected anything. Sazonov, sharp and unreadable, revealed nothing, though he already knew an ultimatum was coming. Austria walked away thinking its secret was safe. It wasn't. On July 19th, Sazonov briefed Tsar Nicholas II at the Peterhof Palace. Reading aloud warnings from his own ambassadors, Vienna was preparing a dangerous note for Belgrade. The Tsar scribbled his own judgment in the margin. A state should not make demands if it does not intend war. He could already see the trap. That same morning in Vienna, Austria's ministers gathered in secret. Foreign Minister Berchtold presented the ultimatum's timetable. It would be delivered to Serbia at 5 p.m. on July 23rd, timed so that by the time the French president left Russia, the note would just be arriving in Belgrade. Serbia would have exactly 48 hours to respond. Everyone knew Serbia would reject it, and war mobilization would begin immediately after. Chief of Staff Konrad von Hitzendorf pressed for speed, demanding preparations begin at once. But Hungarian Prime Minister István Tisza again raised his fears. What if Romania attacked through the mountains? Konrad reassured him, promising martial law in Transylvania and new militia forces. With no ground left to stall, Tisza gave in. At last, the decision was unanimous. The ultimatum would be sent. Meanwhile, all eyes turned north. On July 20th, President Raymond Poincaré of France arrived in St. Petersburg aboard the battleship France. He was welcomed with ceremony, parades, and the embrace of Tsar Nicholas II himself. Poincaré came with a single mission: to bind France and Russia closer than ever. He urged not just Franco-Russian unity but also Britain's involvement, stressing that Germany's growing power threatened them all. The Tsar agreed. Peace in Europe now rested on keeping their alliance strong. Yet even during the festivities, danger leaked through. At a diplomatic reception, the British ambassador, Sir George Buchanan, let slip what he had heard. Austria was preparing a harsh note to Serbia. Poincaré's alarm rose instantly. He confronted Austria's ambassador, Count Schopery, who coldly dismissed his warnings. We cannot tolerate a foreign state closing its eyes to attacks carried out on its own soil, Schopery said sharply. Poincaré pressed harder, warning that Serbia had powerful friends, that Russia would not abandon Belgrade, and that France would stand with her ally. The meeting ended like a duel, neither side yielding. Furious, Poincaré relayed everything to Sazonov, who unleashed his anger on Germany's ambassador next. The Russian minister's warning was blunt. If Austria dares provoke Serbia, it will not only face Belgrade, but all of Europe. When Kaiser Wilhelm later read the German ambassador's report, he scribbled dismissively, "Not Europe, Russia." Yet the message was clear. Russia was drawing a red line. By July 21st, Poincaré met the Tsar again, this time privately. For an hour, they discussed military cooperation, reaffirming their determination not to yield to Austria and Germany. That same evening, Sazonov sent a sharp warning directly to Berlin. If Austria issued an ultimatum to Serbia, Russia would view it as deliberate provocation. This was no longer diplomacy, it was a threat. The French delegation witnessed firsthand how quickly talk of peace was fading. Their attaché noted in his diary, "Nothing is spoken of except war. Days ago, it seemed impossible. Now, it feels inevitable." On July 22nd, Russia staged a massive parade of 60,000 troops in Poincaré's honor. The symbolism was unmistakable. Russia was ready. For the French president, himself from Lorraine, watching Russia's soldiers march was a moment charged with emotion and warning. The message to Germany and Austria was clear. If you strike, you will not face Serbia alone, as the French prepared to leave. The two allies drafted joint instructions for their ambassadors in Vienna. Pressure Austria to show restraint, avoid insulting Serbia's sovereignty, and maintain peace. Britain signaled it would do the same. Still, everyone sensed these pleas would not be enough. Poincaré left Russia convinced of one thing: this time, we must not retreat. Back in Vienna, the final details of the ultimatum were agreed upon. The demands were extraordinary, a list designed to humiliate Serbia. Belgrade was ordered to crush anti-Austrian propaganda, dissolve nationalist organizations, purge schools, dismiss officers and officials, accept Austrian investigators inside Serbia, and arrest those tied to the Sarajevo assassination. In total, 10 points. Serbia would have 48 hours to comply or face war. On July 23rd, Baron Giesel, Austria's ambassador in Belgrade, delivered the note. Serbia's prime minister was away campaigning, as if avoiding the inevitable. The ultimatum was handed instead to Finance Minister Lazar Pacu, who barely spoke French. The Austrians knew this was stalling. Impatient, Giesel left the note behind, stating Serbia's time was running out. Within minutes, Pacu rushed the document to his colleagues, and from there, its contents spread like wildfire across Europe. Diplomats and friendly embassies learned the truth. Austria had issued a challenge Serbia could never accept. The ultimatum was no longer a secret. It was a spark tossed into the powder keg of Europe. And once Serbia answered, the entire continent would find itself standing on the edge of war. That was how Europe, blinded by secrecy, pride, and alliances, stepped into the final countdown. Austria thought it was disciplining a neighbor. Germany thought it was protecting an ally. Russia thought it was defending its honor. France believed it was holding the balance of power, and Britain hoped it could remain a spectator. None realized that the tragic game had already gone too far. The ultimatum to Serbia was not just a piece of paper. It was a ticking clock, and when that clock struck zero, the world would never be the same. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next chapter in history's greatest stories.